I never thought financial pressure would feel like this, like an invisible weight pressing down on every moment, every choice, every breath. It's strange because on paper, my life looks fine, a steady job, a roof over my head, and enough to get by. But the truth is, it's never really enough. The bills always find a way to creep up faster than my paycheck grows, and I'm stuck on this endless treadmill, running hard but never moving forward. Every morning I wake up knowing I have to be careful, careful with my money, careful with my time, careful with my energy. Even the small things become decisions fraught with tension. Do I make coffee at home or buy one on the way to work? Will the extra dollar spent on a sandwich mean skipping dinner later? I never imagined I'd be counting pennies in my late 20s, but here I am. Rent is the biggest beast I wrestle with. It feels like every year it swallows a larger chunk of my income, like a hungry monster that never fills up. I'm lucky to have a place, but it's a tiny apartment on the edge of town, far from the city center, where the commute eats away at hours and money in gas and transit fares. When the rent goes up, I don't get a raise to match it. That gap widens, silently but relentlessly. Groceries are another battleground. I used to love cooking fresh meals, experimenting with flavors, and treating myself to ingredients that made me happy. Now, I find myself calculating the cost per meal, choosing the cheapest options that often leave me feeling unsatisfied, both physically and emotionally. It's hard to nourish yourself well when every bite feels like a compromise. I used to dream about traveling, about seeing new places and meeting new people. I imagined taking time off work to explore Europe or Asia, backpacking with nothing but a camera and a journal. But those dreams have been shelved indefinitely, buried beneath layers of practicality and just get through this month. Instead, my vacations are sometimes just a day off spent at home, trying to rest but feeling guilty for not being productive. The emotional toll is heavy, and it's not something I talk about much. There's shame wrapped up in financial struggle, a sense that I should be doing better, that I'm failing in some way. Friends talk about buying new gadgets, going out to dinner, or making investments, and I nod along, hiding the envy and frustration simmering beneath the surface. Sometimes I feel isolated, like I'm the only one drowning quietly while everyone else seems to be sailing. Stress has become a constant companion. It gnaws at me, turning my mind into a loop of what-ifs and should-haves. I lie awake at night, calculating bills, wondering how I'll cover an unexpected expense, worrying about the future. I've had to postpone medical checkups, skip social events, and even consider switching to a lower-quality phone plan, all to keep the numbers balanced. Each sacrifice chips away at my sense of freedom and joy. But despite all this, I'm still here. I find small ways to cope. Sometimes it's binge-watching old favorite shows to escape, other times it's a late-night walk when the city is quiet and the air feels a little lighter. I hold on to hope, fragile as it is, that this is temporary. That if I keep working, keep saving, and keep dreaming, maybe one day the pressure will ease. I try to remind myself that my worth isn't measured by my bank account, even though it often feels like it is. I'm more than the numbers, the debts, the missed opportunities. Still, it's hard not to feel trapped in a system that seems designed to keep people like me stuck, where expenses rise faster than wages, where essential things become luxuries, and where stability feels like a distant, almost mythical state. Looking ahead, I want more than survival. I want to build a life where money isn't a constant source of anxiety, where I can say yes to new experiences without counting the cost. I want to save for a home, maybe start a family someday, and have the freedom to pursue passions without the shadow of financial fear. Those dreams don't feel impossible, they just feel delayed, pushed back by a world that moves too fast and costs too much. For now, I keep going. I make the tough choices and hold on to the moments of joy wherever I find them. I talk openly about my struggles when I can, breaking the silence around money and mental health. And maybe, someday, the scales will tip in my favor, not because the system changed overnight, but because I refuse to stop hoping. This story isn't just mine. It's the story of so many young adults today, caught in a cycle that's hard to break, navigating a world where the cost of living outpaces the cost of living well. And while it's a hard story to live, it's one I'm learning to tell with honesty, vulnerability, and a quiet strength that maybe, just maybe, will carry me through. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. I never thought money would feel like a cage, but here I am, locked in, day after day, barely keeping my head above water. At 27, I'm supposed to be building my life, chasing dreams, maybe even planning for the future. Instead, I'm stuck juggling bills that climb higher every month while my paycheck stays stubbornly the same. It's like trying to run on a treadmill that speeds up no matter how hard you push. Exhausting, frustrating, and honestly, a little heartbreaking. Most mornings, I wake up with a knot in my stomach. The first thought is always the same: what's due this week? How am I going to cover it? Rent, utilities, groceries, phone bill, student loan payments, they're a relentless tide that doesn't ebb. And every time the price of gas or groceries ticks up, or the landlord raises the rent by just a bit, it feels like the system is squeezing tighter, leaving less room to breathe. I remind myself that it's not just me, that so many others are feeling this pressure, but it doesn't make it any easier when you're the one opening the envelopes and logging into your bank app, hoping to see a bigger number than the last time. I work 2 jobs, one full-time office gig and a part-time weekend job, to keep things afloat. Both pay just enough to cover essentials, with a few dollars left over for things like laundry detergent or the occasional meal out. But saving? Investing in my future? That's a fantasy that feels distant and almost cruel. Every dollar saved seems to get swallowed by the next unexpected expense. Last month, my car broke down, and the repair cost wiped out the small cushion I'd been slowly building. The stress of not knowing how to handle these setbacks without falling behind keeps me awake more nights than I care to admit. Emotionally, it's a constant battle. On the surface, I try to stay positive. I tell myself this is temporary, that hard work will pay off. But underneath, there's a gnawing anxiety that never quite goes away. Sometimes I feel isolated, like I'm the only one who's struggling this way. Friends post pictures of weekend getaways, new gadgets, or fancy dinners, and I'm happy for them, truly. But it also stings, reminding me of the things I can't do without feeling guilty or stretched too thin. There's this subtle but persistent shame in not being able to keep up, even though I know deep down that this is less about personal failure and more about a system that isn't designed for people like me. I've had to postpone dreams, big ones that once felt so close. I wanted to travel, to see new places and cultures, to experience life beyond the daily grind. I wanted to move to a city where opportunities felt limitless, not to a place where rent devours half my paycheck. I wanted to go back to school, to learn new skills and open doors for better jobs. But tuition is another mountain, and with no safety net, I can't risk sinking deeper into debt. Instead, I settle for the small victories, finding a coupon for groceries, cooking meals at home instead of takeout, biking to work when I can to save on gas. These choices keep me going, but they also remind me of what's missing. Sometimes I catch myself daydreaming about a different life, not just financially, but emotionally. A life where I don't have to choose between paying a bill or buying a birthday gift. Where I can plan for the future instead of just reacting to the next crisis. Where my worth isn't tied to the numbers in my bank account or the constant struggle to keep up with an ever-rising cost of living. Coping is a daily practice. I lean on the small routines that offer some control, making my own coffee instead of buying it, carving out moments for walks or reading to escape my head for a bit. I reach out to friends when I can, even though it's hard to admit how much I'm struggling. Sometimes just voicing these worries helps, reminding me that I'm not invisible, that my experience matters. But honestly, the system feels like it's built to keep me in place. Wages that don't rise with inflation, housing prices that skyrocket, unexpected expenses that strike without warning. It's like running a race where the finish line keeps moving farther away. And I know I'm not alone. Millions of us are caught in this cycle, hoping for a break, a shift in the tides. Until then, we carry on. We work harder, stretch every dollar, and try to hold on to hope. Because giving up isn't an option. Deep down, I still believe there's a way out, a future where financial pressure doesn't define every choice or shadow every dream. But for now, I live in the tension of wanting more and doing the best I can with what I have. Maybe that's what resilience really means, not just surviving, but holding on to the hope that someday, things will change. And when that day comes, I want to be ready, not just to survive, but to finally live. I never thought I'd end up feeling like this, like I'm just treading water in a sea that never calms. I'm 26, and honestly, some days it feels like I'm barely holding on. The weight of money isn't just about the numbers in my bank account, it's this constant, nagging pressure that shadows every choice I make, every breath I take. It started pretty normally, like I guess it does for a lot of us. Fresh out of college, eager, hopeful, with a degree in hand and a plan. But the world didn't seem to be playing by the same rules I'd learned. Rent skyrocketed, groceries cost more than they used to, and the paycheck? It stayed stubbornly the same, maybe inching up a bit, but nowhere near close to catching the runaway costs. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up while I'm stuck in slow motion. Every morning, I wake up and run through the same checklist in my head. How much money is left? What bills are due? Can I afford to eat out this week? Should I cancel that subscription? Should I just skip a meal? The questions aren't just practical, they're a form of anxiety that gnaws at the edges of my day. Even when I'm with friends, there's this quiet panic underneath. They talk about travel plans, new gadgets, weekend outings. And there I am, calculating in my mind if I can squeeze one more coffee out of my budget without feeling guilty. I feel trapped in this system. It's like the world is set up so that everything costs a little more than I make. Utilities climb up every year, rent is a constant uphill battle, and don't get me started on healthcare. Each price hike feels like a shove further down a hole I'm desperately trying to climb out of. The harder I work, the deeper the hole seems to get. Some nights, I lie awake and replay the dreams I had. I wanted to travel, to see places that aren't just Instagram backdrops but stories that change you. I wanted to move out of my cramped apartment into a place where I didn't have to worry about every creaky pipe or the mold growing in the bathroom corner. I dreamed of going back to school for something I loved, not just something practical. But those dreams? They feel like luxury items now, unaffordable and out of reach. Coping has become a kind of art form for me. I budget obsessively, turning every dollar like a Rubik's Cube in my hands, twisting it around to fit somewhere it doesn't want to go. I've started cooking almost every meal at home, even though sometimes the last thing I want after a long day is to stand over a stove. I cancel plans I can't afford and say no to invitations that sound fun but would leave me scrambling to pay next month's rent. I'm proud of the little things I manage, sticking to a savings plan, however tiny, finding second-hand clothes that look decent, walking instead of taking the bus when I can. But pride can't erase the exhaustion. Financial pressure isn't just about money, it's about the constant, low-grade fear of something going wrong. A flat tire, a surprise medical bill, or even an unexpected birthday gift request can feel like the tipping point. The emotional toll? It's heavy. There's a loneliness in this struggle, a kind of quiet shame that keeps me from talking about it openly. People assume if you're young, you have time. They say, just wait, it'll get better. But that better feels like a mirage when every paycheck disappears before it lands. I'm not just stressed, I'm scared. Scared that my efforts won't be enough, that I'll always be a few steps behind, that I'm trapped in a cycle designed to keep me scrambling. Yet, there's still a flicker of hope inside me, small and fragile but stubborn. I remind myself that this is a season, not a sentence. I write down my goals, even if they seem distant. I talk to friends who get it, who don't judge or dismiss the struggle. I look for ways to upskill, to make myself more valuable in a market that feels cold and indifferent. But most of all, I try to be kind to myself on the days when the pressure feels unbearable. I remind myself that survival, in this environment, is itself an achievement. I'm still here, still trying, still hoping. That's something, at least. Sometimes I wonder what it would feel like to not have to think twice about money, to buy what I need without panic, to say yes to opportunities without hesitation. Maybe one day I'll get there. Until then, I'll keep swimming in this rough sea, holding on to the hope that someday, the tide will turn. And when it does, I want to be ready, not just to survive, but to finally live. I never imagined I'd end up here, stuck in this cycle where every month feels like a balancing act on a tightrope stretched too thin. I'm 27, working a decent job that used to feel like a ticket to independence, but now it's more like a barely flickering candle in a dark room. The thing is, my paycheck hasn't changed much in the last few years, but everything else has: rent, groceries, utilities, gas, all climbing higher and higher, as if my bank account were a balloon being slowly punctured by rising costs. It's hard to explain how exhausting it is to always be behind the numbers. I spend half my week calculating expenses and the other half just trying not to think about what I can't afford. Some nights, I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'm supposed to keep up. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up but never takes you anywhere. When I graduated college, I had this vision. I thought I'd be able to pay off my student loans in a few years, save for a down payment on a place, maybe even start planning for a future where I wasn't constantly worried about money. But reality has been this heavy chain wrapped around my ankles. Each month, rent gobbles up most of my income, and the rest disappears into bills I can't control. The car breaks down, I have to scrape together emergency funds that don't exist. A visit to the doctor means choosing between medical bills or eating well for a week. This constant weighing of priorities wears down your spirit more than I ever thought possible. It's embarrassing sometimes, feeling like you're a grown-up who can't quite adult. Friends talk about vacations, new apartments, weddings, and babies, and I smile, but inside I'm quietly sinking. I want to be happy for them, but it also reminds me of what feels just out of reach. I've had to cancel plans, skip social outings, even say no to opportunities because they weren't financially feasible. It's lonely in a way, this isolation born from scarcity. There's also the mental toll. The anxiety creeps in like a slow fog. I catch myself holding back tears over simple things, like the electric bill being higher than usual or the gas tank dipping too low. Some days, the stress feels physical, tightness in my chest, restless nights, the kind of exhaustion that no amount of sleep fixes. I try to keep a brave face, but it's hard to hide the worry when it feels like the whole system is stacked against you. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just not working hard enough, or smart enough, or if I'm making mistakes somewhere along the line. But then I look around and see so many people in the same boat, riding out a storm they never asked to be part of. It's not a failure of will or effort, it's this overwhelming economic pressure that's outpacing everything. Jobs pay the same or less, rents rise with no end in sight, basic necessities become luxuries. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole at the bottom, and no matter how fast you pour, it never fills. I try to cope in small ways. Cooking meals at home instead of eating out, walking instead of taking public transit, cutting out streaming services one by one. I've learned to find moments of joy in the small things: a walk in the park, a good book borrowed from the library, a call with a friend who gets it. Sometimes I let myself daydream about what I'd do if I had a little breathing room, maybe take a weekend trip, buy new clothes that aren't on sale racks, or save for a course that could help me advance at work. But those dreams feel distant, like stars I can see but can't quite reach. I'm grateful for what I do have: a stable job, health, family who checks in now and then, but that doesn't erase the feeling of being trapped. I want to believe there's a way out, that with patience and grit, I can build a future where money doesn't dictate every decision or weigh so heavily on my mind. Sometimes I imagine waking up and not feeling like I'm scrambling just to survive, where I can invest in myself instead of just covering bills. It's hard to say how I keep going. Maybe it's hope, stubbornness, or just the refusal to give up. Some days, it's a whisper inside that says, "This isn't forever." I try to hold on to that, even when it feels like the system is designed to keep people like me stuck, chasing after a life that's always one step beyond reach. I don't know when or how the tide will turn. But for now, I'm here, navigating the stress, the setbacks, and the small victories. I'm learning to be kinder to myself, to accept that some battles aren't personal failures. And I'm holding on to the hope that someday, I'll look back and see this period not just as a time of struggle, but as the foundation I built my life on, messy, painful, but real. Until then, I keep going. It's like I'm running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up every day, but I'm barely moving forward. Some days, it feels like no matter what I do, I'm stuck in place, and the whole world around me just keeps pushing harder, faster. That's how it's been for me these past few years, trying to navigate adulthood while drowning in this relentless pressure that's always financial, always looming. I'm 27, living in a small apartment that I can barely afford, working 2 jobs, one full-time, one part-time, and still wondering how I'm going to pay rent, buy groceries, and keep the lights on next month. It's like a constant balancing act on a tightrope where the wind is always gusting stronger. You learn to get used to the fear of falling, but it never really goes away. When I graduated from college, I had this fire inside me. I was ready to chase my dreams, make something of myself, and maybe even live comfortably. I imagined a life where I could afford little luxuries, a night out here and there, weekend trips, saving for a car. But reality hit hard and fast. The economy wasn't on my side. Inflation shot up, rent prices soared, and every time I got a raise, it was like a drop in a bucket compared to the rising cost of living. It's exhausting to wake up every morning knowing that money will dictate every single decision you make. Should I buy groceries or fill my prescription? Can I afford to take the bus or do I have to walk an extra hour in the cold? Should I skip that coffee because it's just $3, but those $3 add up every week? The math never adds up. I'm constantly stretching every dollar, cutting corners, and yet somehow the pile of bills only grows. The worst part is feeling trapped in a system that's designed to squeeze you dry. It's like there's this invisible force pulling the strings, expenses ballooning faster than my paycheck grows, debt piling up, and no end in sight. I hear about people investing, buying homes, traveling, but that world feels like it belongs to someone else. Someone luckier or born into a different reality. I want to believe that I can get there too, but the path is obscured by endless obstacles. Some days, I feel completely invisible. The stress gnaws at me quietly, but deeply. It's the little things, the pit in my stomach when the rent deadline looms, the restless nights worrying about whether I can keep the lights on through the winter, the shame of saying no to friends because I can't afford to go out. It chips away at your confidence, your sense of worth. Sometimes, I catch myself thinking maybe I'm not smart enough, not capable enough, or just plain unlucky. But I'm still here. I cope by clinging to small routines that keep me grounded. Cooking my own meals instead of ordering takeout, even when I'm tired. Walking to work instead of taking the bus. Finding joy in simple things, a good book borrowed from the library, a long phone call with my sister, a quiet moment watching the sunset from my window. These little anchors remind me there's more to life than money, even when it feels like everything revolves around it. I've had to postpone so many dreams. The dream of going back to school, the dream of traveling abroad, even the dream of owning a car. Sometimes I feel like I'm living someone else's life, a paused version of what I wanted, waiting for a chance to hit play again. It's hard not to resent that, to resent the economy, the system, the timing of it all. But despite it all, I still hold on to hope. I dream of a day when I can breathe easier, when I don't have to calculate every expense like it's a life or death equation. When I can save money instead of scrambling for it. When I can take care of myself without guilt or fear. Those dreams keep me going, even on the darkest days. Financial pressure isn't just about numbers. It's about how it shapes your entire life, your emotions, your choices, your sense of self. It's a heavy weight, but I'm learning to carry it bit by bit, one day at a time, hoping that someday I'll find solid ground beneath my feet again. Until then, I keep running on that treadmill, pushing forward, because what else can I do? It's hard to even know where to start, but maybe that's the point. There's no clean beginning to this story because it's just been an ongoing, slow grind. I'm 26, living in a city that feels like it's getting more expensive by the minute, while my paycheck stubbornly refuses to keep pace. Every month feels like a balancing act on a tightrope that's fraying at the edges. The pressure to keep everything together never lets up. I work full-time, actually. Sometimes I think I work more than full-time, but my bank account doesn't reflect that. I make enough to cover rent and basic bills, but the margin for anything extra is razor thin. The rent alone is a huge slice of my paycheck, and it's gone up twice in the last year. Utilities, groceries, transport, phone bills, everything seems to be inching upward. And no matter how much I tighten my belt, it feels like the cost of living just grows faster than my income. I'm stuck in this loop where I can't catch up, and it's exhausting. Some days, it feels like I'm just treading water, fighting to keep my head above the waves. Other days, I feel like I'm drowning in a sea of bills and obligations. It's not just the numbers on a spreadsheet or the balance in my bank account, it's the emotional weight that sits heavy in my chest. There's this constant hum of anxiety, an underlying tension I can't quite shake off. It's like carrying a bag full of rocks that only gets heavier as time goes on. I've learned to make sacrifices that I never imagined I'd have to. My social life has shrunk because nights out or weekend trips aren't just luxuries, they're impossible expenses. I say no more often than I say yes, which makes me feel isolated sometimes. I've cut down on hobbies, stopped buying new clothes, and even avoided going to the doctor unless it's absolutely necessary. There's this awkward guilt in needing things, in wanting things that aren't essential, and having to talk myself out of it. I feel trapped in a system that doesn't seem to care if I thrive or just survive. Food is one area where I constantly negotiate with myself. I buy the cheapest groceries I can find and plan meals around what's on sale, but even that takes time and energy that I don't always have. On a bad week, I rely on instant noodles or whatever frozen meal is on discount because it's just easier. I know it's not great for my health, but the alternative is skipping meals or going hungry. I wonder how many people around me are in the same boat, silently struggling to fill their plates. The worst part is the feeling of being stuck. Like I'm on a treadmill that won't slow down, no matter how fast I run. I've dreamed of going back to school, of switching careers, of moving somewhere cheaper, but those things feel like distant stars, beautiful and bright but impossibly far away. Every plan seems to hit a wall because money is always the barrier. I can't save, I can't invest, and I certainly can't take the risks that might get me out of this cycle. When I do let myself think about the future, it's bittersweet. I want to believe things will get better, I have to believe it, or I'd lose all hope. But the reality keeps pulling me back. The news talks about inflation, job markets, and housing crises in ways that feel like personal threats rather than abstract problems. It's hard not to internalize all of it, to imagine that no matter how hard I try, I'll just keep spinning in place. I cope the best I can. I've started journaling, which helps me put my thoughts into words and remind myself that I'm not alone in this. I reach out to friends when I can, even if it's just a quick text or a shared meme, little moments of connection that remind me there's more to life than money. Sometimes I walk outside at night, just to feel the air and remind myself there's a whole world beyond these financial struggles. Those moments help me breathe. But honestly, there are times when the weight of it all presses down so hard I feel numb. The shame of not having enough, the frustration of working so hard but barely scraping by, the sadness of putting my dreams on hold, it's a lot to carry. And yet, here I am, still trying, still hoping, still searching for some kind of light at the end of this tunnel. I want to believe in a future where I'm not constantly counting pennies, where I can save for a home, where I can travel or start a family without fear. I want to believe in a system that supports people like me, that values our work and our dreams. Until then, I'll keep going, one day at a time, one paycheck at a time, hoping that someday the scales will tip in my favor. I never thought I'd end up here, sitting alone in a cramped apartment that barely fits my mismatched furniture, staring at a screen full of numbers that don't add up. It's a strange kind of exhaustion, one that digs deeper than tired muscles or sleepless nights. It's the exhaustion of trying to outrun a system that feels designed to keep me stuck, chasing expenses that grow faster than my paycheck ever will. I'm 27, and I work 2 jobs. One's a part-time graphic design gig that barely pays enough to cover my student loans, and the other is a retail job that sucks most of my energy away. I used to think if I just worked hard enough, played by the rules, saved a little here and there, I'd eventually get ahead. But every month feels like a treadmill with the speed turned up. I run harder, but I don't get anywhere. Rent is the biggest killer. My landlord raised it again this year, something like 7%, which doesn't sound like much until you see it on your bank statement when you're scraping pennies together. Utilities, groceries, transportation, they all creep up a little more each month. Even my phone bill seems to have a mind of its own, climbing steadily despite me switching to the cheapest plan I could find. It's like everything around me is conspiring to keep me from saving, from breathing easy. Some days, I feel this tight knot in my chest when I open my email and see a reminder about an overdue bill or a new charge I forgot about. I lie awake at night, calculating how much I need just to get through the week without overdrawing my account. I hate feeling this vulnerable, like one unexpected expense, maybe a car repair or a medical bill, could unravel everything. It's a constant low-grade anxiety, the kind that never fully lets you relax. I've had to make sacrifices that sting. I postponed buying a new laptop I desperately need because I couldn't justify the expense. The one I have now is slow and crashes at the worst times, but I keep patching it up with duct tape and prayers. I canceled my gym membership months ago, even though exercise helps me cope with stress, it's just not worth the cost right now. Friends invite me out for drinks or dinner, and I decline more often than not, worried about spending money I don't have. It feels isolating, like I'm shrinking away from a world I want to be part of but can't afford. I remember how different things used to feel. I had dreams, big ones, maybe unrealistic, but they were mine. I wanted to travel, to see places beyond this city that feels both familiar and suffocating. I dreamed of owning a small apartment, maybe even starting my own business someday. But those dreams seem like distant galaxies now, unreachable and faint. Every month that passes, I tuck them away a little more, telling myself, maybe next year. Maybe when things get better. Sometimes, I wonder if I'm doing something wrong. Am I not working hard enough? Am I bad with money? I've read all the advice, budget strictly, cut back on luxuries, increase income, but it never feels like enough. The economic environment is brutal. Inflation is higher than I've ever seen, and wages barely keep up. Job security feels like a myth, even with 2 jobs, I'm always worried about sudden layoffs or reduced hours. The system is set up so that growth is a luxury, not a given. I've developed small rituals to cope, moments where I can forget the pressure even if just for a bit. Listening to music during my commute, reading fiction that lets me escape into other worlds, journaling my thoughts even when it's hard to face them. Some nights, I call my mom and talk about how things are going. She's been a quiet rock, reminding me that this phase won't last forever, even when I'm not so sure. I catch myself daydreaming about a future where I'm not constantly calculating costs or saying no. A future where I can invest in myself without guilt, where I wake up and don't dread the bills waiting for me. I imagine a small kitchen filled with plants and sunlight, where I can cook meals without stressing over ingredients. A place where I can save for a vacation and not just stare at travel blogs wistfully. But right now, that future feels distant. The trap of living paycheck to paycheck is real. It's a cycle that's hard to break because every step forward is met with 2 steps back. Yet, despite everything, there's a flicker of hope, a stubborn belief that if I can just keep going, keep pushing, maybe I'll find a crack in the system, a door to something better. I don't have easy answers. I don't have a neat story of overcoming adversity. I just have this messy, ongoing experience of trying to survive in a world where expenses feel like an avalanche and income is a single grain of sand. And that, I think, is something worth sharing, because maybe, if we're honest about the struggle, we can start thinking about how to change the system so people like me don't have to feel trapped anymore. I don't even know when it started to feel like this, like I'm constantly running just to stay in place. Some days, it feels like I'm sinking, slowly but steadily, into a financial quicksand I never agreed to step into. I'm 27. I have a degree, a job, and an apartment I can barely afford. On paper, I did everything I was supposed to. Got decent grades, didn't party too much in college, tried to network. But none of that feels like it means anything now. Rent eats half my paycheck every month. Student loans eat another quarter. What's left is for groceries, transit, and just barely scraping by. And forget savings. The idea of putting aside money is like imagining a vacation on the moon. Last week, my laptop started acting up, screen flickering, fan sounding like it's trying to take flight. I need it for work, of course. I freelance on the side, doing design projects to fill the gaps my full-time job leaves. The idea of it breaking for good made my chest tighten. The cheapest viable replacement is around $700. I don't have that. So I started looking at buy now, pay later options even though I know the trap it is. But what choice do I have? It's this constant negotiation with my own needs. Do I fix my only means of income now and risk sinking deeper into debt, or do I hope it holds on another month? Do I buy fresh produce or stretch out the frozen meals again? Do I visit my parents for the holidays and blow my fragile budget on train tickets, or stay home and feel guilty about it? I used to have dreams. God, that sounds dramatic, but it's true. I wanted to start my own design studio. Back in college, I imagined a tiny space with mismatched furniture, coffee always brewing, and clients who appreciated good work. I even had a name picked out, Layer and Light. It felt like it meant something. Now I can't even imagine quitting my job. The idea of losing a steady paycheck, even one that doesn't cover everything, is terrifying. The dream feels like a cruel joke. Every time I think about pursuing it, the reality of bills, rent increases, and inflation slams me back down. Dreams are for people who can afford them. I live in a tiny studio apartment with thin walls and a cracked window pane that whistles when the wind hits it just right. It's not terrible, but it's not home. It's survival. I keep the heat low in winter to save on utilities and cook in batches to stretch food across days. There's a laundromat down the street I use sparingly because every dollar counts. I calculate costs down to the cent now. I've become that person who stands in the grocery aisle, mentally running totals with every item I put in my basket. Emotionally? I'm tired. Not just physically tired, I can sleep and still feel like I haven't rested. I mean tired in my bones, in my hope. There's a weariness that comes from never getting ahead, from realizing that adulthood, for people like me, is a series of compromises and postponed joys. I try not to resent people who post photos from trips to Europe or unbox new tech they don't need but can afford. Still, it stings. I tell myself they might have help I don't, but that logic doesn't dull the ache. Therapy helps, or at least it used to. I had to stop going because I couldn't justify the cost anymore, even on a sliding scale. I replaced it with long walks and journaling. Sometimes, I cry in the shower. It's private there, and the sound of the water masks it. Other times, I talk to friends who are in the same boat. We joke about it, but there's an undertone of fear in our voices. Like we're all just one emergency away from disaster. My mom calls every week. She tries not to ask too many questions, but I can tell she worries. My parents did what they could. They didn't have a lot, but they gave me everything they could afford, and more. I hate feeling like I let that go to waste. Like the world changed faster than they could prepare me for. I want to tell them I'm okay, but sometimes I'm not sure I am. I survive. I keep going. But is that enough? I keep a vision board tucked away behind my closet door. It has pictures of places I want to visit, quotes that inspired me once, and that logo I designed for my imaginary studio. I look at it sometimes, not because I still believe all of it will happen, but because I need a reason to keep pushing. Hope, even in fragments, is something. Every now and then, I catch myself imagining a life without this weight. A life where I could go to dinner without checking my bank app first. Where I could get sick without panic setting in about missing work. Where I could say yes to things without the fear of what it will cost me later. Coping, for me, is about small acts of defiance. Lighting a cheap candle in my room and pretending it's ambience instead of necessity. Buying myself a single good pastry from the bakery on my street when I've managed to cut costs elsewhere. Calling it self-care even when it feels like indulgence. I postponed dreams, but I haven't killed them. I don't know if that makes me naive or resilient. Maybe both. Maybe that's what surviving like this demands, a strange, stubborn hope that refuses to die, even when it's barely breathing. I tell myself, every day, that I'm doing my best. That the system is rigged, not broken because it was never built for people like me to win. I tell myself that surviving is a form of resistance. That every rent check I manage to cover, every month I keep going, is proof that I haven't given up. But I'm tired. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life surviving. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I wake up every morning with a pit in my stomach. It's not just the alarm blaring on my phone or the fact that I didn't sleep much, again. It's the weight that hits the second I remember everything I need to handle, everything I owe, and how little I have to do it with. I'm 27, have a college degree, a full-time job, and a side gig, and I still feel like I'm drowning. My salary sounds okay on paper, $48,000 a year working admin at a mid-sized marketing firm in the city. But by the time taxes, health insurance, and retirement contributions are taken out, the bare minimum, because future me doesn't exist when present me can't breathe, my bank account rarely makes it past 2 weeks without crying for help. Rent is $1,320 a month for a studio I share with cockroaches and the hum of my neighbor's late-night YouTube marathons. It used to be $1,050 just 3 years ago. Nothing changed but the number, and no, I didn't get a raise to match it. Groceries? I used to walk out of Trader Joe's with 2 full bags for $45. Now it's $70 for half of what I used to get. Gas, car insurance, student loan payments that just restarted after the pause, each month, it's like I'm being dared to keep going. I used to have a dream. I wanted to be a writer. I used to imagine a quiet apartment filled with books, sunlight, and words I'd string together on a typewriter, or, let's be real, a beat-up laptop. I'd travel. Not Instagram travel, not destination weddings or bachelorette parties in places I couldn't spell, but real travel. Like, take a train through the Pacific Northwest. Backpack through Portugal. Write from small towns with cheap coffee and kind people. Now I write emails, memos, spreadsheets. At night, I write ad copy for a freelancer site, chasing $15 gigs from clients who ask for 500 words and revisions until it's perfect. I can't remember the last time I wrote something just because I wanted to. Every word I write now has a $sign attached to it. It's hard to love something when you have to sell it to survive. I try to cope. I budget obsessively, tracking every cent in a spreadsheet that's color-coded like a war plan. I bring my lunch to work. I haven't bought new clothes in over a year, unless you count socks from the clearance bin. I split streaming subscriptions with friends and canceled Spotify Premium. I have 4 credit cards, 2 maxed out, 1 close, 1 I guard like it's the only thing keeping me from collapsing. And still, some days I open my banking app and just stare. Not because I don't know what it's going to say, but because I do. Because it always says the same thing, not enough. Never enough. People say money isn't everything. That's true in the way water isn't everything, until you're dehydrated. Until you're crawling through the desert with cracked lips and a dry tongue and someone says, smile more. It's not about wanting luxury. I don't care about designer anything. I just want to stop waking up afraid. I want to stop calculating every decision. Can I afford to say yes to brunch? No. Can I afford a vet visit if my cat gets sick? Also no. Can I afford therapy, a vacation, a wedding gift, new shoes for work, a car repair? No. 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 Maybe, if I skip groceries. I see people my age posting about buying houses, starting families. Some of them are doing okay, sure, but most have help. Parents who paid for school, or gifted a down payment, or let them live at home rent-free while they saved. That's not my life. My parents are doing their best, but they're just trying to stay afloat too. I send them money when I can. I've never had a safety net. It's just me. Always has been. And it's exhausting. There's a particular kind of grief in knowing your 20s, the years people say are supposed to be the best of your life, are defined not by freedom, but by fear. That the idea of a middle class feels like fiction, like a historical anecdote we'll tell our kids if we ever have them. I can't imagine a child right now. I can't even imagine next month. What keeps me going? Honestly, it changes day to day. Sometimes it's just inertia. Sometimes it's a friend's laugh, or the way the sky looks when I leave work at just the right hour. Sometimes it's the thought that maybe, just maybe, this doesn't have to be forever. That I'll find a way to make something from this mess. That my words will still matter. I still write in a notebook sometimes, when I have the energy. Little scenes, fragments of things I'd like to turn into stories. Maybe I'll get there. Maybe I won't. But I still want it. Even if the dream has dust on it now. I'm trying to be proud of that. I'm 27, and most days, it feels like I'm just spinning my wheels, like no matter how hard I try, I can't gain traction. I live in a small studio apartment in a city I used to dream about when I was a teenager. Back then, the skyline looked like possibility. Now, it just looks expensive. My name's Jordan. I work 2 jobs, barista in the mornings, retail in the evenings. On paper, I make just enough to survive. In reality, I live paycheck to paycheck, barely keeping up with rent, groceries, transportation, and the countless unexpected expenses that somehow happen every week. When my phone screen cracked last month, I almost cried, not because I'm overly sentimental about a piece of tech, but because I knew I couldn't afford to fix it. I still haven't. I just squint past the cracks. The rent for my studio went up again last month. That makes 3 increases in the past 2 years. I tried negotiating with the landlord, but he just shrugged, said it's the market. I guess the market doesn't care that I skipped dinner last Thursday to afford bus fare for the rest of the week. Everyday decisions feel like equations I don't have the variables for. Do I take a rideshare after my late shift and eat instant noodles for dinner the next 4 nights, or do I take the bus, risk the walk home in the dark, and spend that extra $8 on real food? These aren't occasional dilemmas, they're constant. They shape every corner of my day. I wasn't always this anxious. I used to have dreams, real ones. I wanted to be a writer, novels, short stories, essays. I studied English in college and believed, naively, that I'd figure out the rest after graduation. But the rest turned out to be a mountain of student debt, unpaid internships that led nowhere, and a job market that seemed to laugh at my degree. Now, I write in half-full journals during my lunch break, when I'm not too tired or too hungry. Most days, I'm both. I've learned to cope in ways that probably don't look like coping. I make lists, not just to-do lists, but lists of what I can control, my bus schedule, my meal prep, how much coffee I drink so I don't get jittery but still stay awake during my retail shifts. I listen to music constantly, it drowns out the noise in my head, that persistent voice that whispers, this isn't sustainable. Sometimes I lie to my friends. When they ask how I'm doing, I say busy or hanging in. I don't tell them I'm terrified. I don't tell them I sometimes sit on the floor of my apartment just to cry because I can't afford therapy and the weight in my chest doesn't lift, not really. Vulnerability costs something too, and I'm already in overdraft. It's strange to watch your world shrink because of money. I used to love exploring, day trips to little towns, indie movies on a whim, brunch. Now, I calculate the price of every moment. Is this coffee worth it if it means skipping laundry day? Can I say yes to this birthday dinner if I'm not sure I'll make rent next month? Most times, the answer is no. There's a bitterness that creeps in, especially when I scroll through social media. Everyone seems to be thriving. Traveling. Buying homes. Posting just bought a car selfies. I know the internet is a highlight reel, but it stings. I wonder what I'm doing wrong. I work hard, harder than I ever imagined I'd have to, but I feel like I'm still falling behind. I'm not lazy. I'm not irresponsible. I just can't get ahead. Every time I save a little, something takes it: an unexpected medical bill, a friend's wedding gift, higher utilities. It's like trying to fill a bathtub with the drain open. And yet, there are still sparks of hope, flickers that haven't gone out completely. I hold on to small victories: when I find a better deal at the grocery store, when my manager compliments my work ethic, when I finish a short story at 2 a.m. and it actually feels good. Not publishable, not groundbreaking, but good. Mine. I dream of more, of a life where I don't have to make trade-offs between health and transportation, where I can afford to take a day off without spiraling into panic. I want to wake up and not feel the weight of money pressing on my chest. I want to write full-time or at least part-time. I want to own a bookshelf. I want to have a dog. Stupid dreams, maybe, but they keep me going. I try not to think too far ahead. The future feels like something I'm renting month to month, never owned. But I hold tight to the belief that things can change. Maybe slowly, maybe not all at once, but change is still possible. I keep working, I keep writing, I keep hoping. And that, I guess, is how I cope. By believing, even when everything around me says not to, that this isn't all there is. That someday, I won't have to choose between heat and groceries, between safety and dignity. That maybe I'll look back on this chapter not with shame, but with pride, for having survived it, for not giving up. It's 6:12 a.m. when my alarm goes off. The first thing I do, before I even sit up, is check my bank account. Not because I expect anything new to be there, but because I've developed this habit of needing to see the number, even if it's bad. Today, it's $38.17. That's after rent hit 2 days ago and my last shift at the cafe paid out. Payday is next Friday. I lay there for another minute, staring at the ceiling of the tiny studio I rent. The paint is chipped in one corner, and the ceiling fan has this annoying squeak that keeps me up some nights. I used to dream about a one-bedroom with a little balcony, maybe some plants. Now I just hope my landlord doesn't raise the rent again when the lease renews. I crawl out of bed and shuffle into the kitchenette. There's half a loaf of bread left and some peanut butter. That'll be breakfast. I skip the coffee, I've been rationing it since the bag ran out last week. Everything feels like it's about rationing now. Energy, money, dreams. I'm 27. I graduated with a degree in marketing right into a job market that didn't care. My first full-time job out of college paid $14.50 an hour, and it barely covered my student loan payments. I stuck it out for a year and a half before getting laid off in a restructuring. That was the first time I realized how fragile everything was. You do what you're supposed to do, school, internships, hustle, and it still doesn't guarantee anything. Now I work 2 part-time jobs, one at the cafe and another doing remote admin work for a small startup that pays peanuts but gives me just enough hours to barely get by. I've gotten good at juggling schedules and never saying no, because saying no might mean not getting asked again. And if I don't get asked, I don't get paid. Some days, I walk instead of taking the bus. I say it's for the exercise, but really, it's because I need to save the $2.75. I've become a master at calculating the cost of everything. Can I afford this $4 granola bar? What about this $3 bottle of shampoo? And yet the numbers still don't work out. Rent's up 11% this year. Groceries keep getting more expensive. The interest on my credit card is eating me alive, but I need it just to fill in the gaps. It feels like I'm running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up while I'm stuck at the same pace. There's this constant, quiet panic that lives in me now. It hums beneath everything. I try to ignore it during my shifts, when I'm pouring lattes or sending emails with fake cheer, but it never really goes away. It's the part of me that wonders, what if I get sick and can't work? What if my laptop breaks? What if they cut my hours? When I get home, I scroll through Instagram and see friends getting married, buying houses, going to grad school. I'm genuinely happy for them, but it also stings. I've put off grad school indefinitely, it's too expensive, and I can't justify taking on more debt. I postponed the idea of a relationship too. Who wants to date someone who's constantly stressed, always broke, and can't afford to go out? I used to want to open a small creative agency. I had ideas, a name, a rough business plan saved on my old laptop. Now, that file just sits there, untouched. I look at it sometimes like an artifact from another life, a version of me that still believed in possibilities. These days, I cope by compartmentalizing. I celebrate the small wins, a free lunch from my boss, a week without dipping into my overdraft, a second-hand jacket that fits perfectly. I journal, I listen to music, I go for long walks and let myself feel the sun on my face. Some nights I cry in the shower, where no one can hear me. I become skilled at pretending everything's okay. At work, I smile and ask customers about their day. I offer tips to new hires like I'm someone who's figured it out. I post the occasional filtered photo that makes it look like I'm thriving. But inside, it feels like I'm holding my breath all the time. The hardest part is the shame. Not just about being broke, but about feeling like I'm failing at adulthood. Like I'm behind. I know rationally that this isn't all my fault, that wages have stagnated, that the economy is built to squeeze people like me, but it still feels personal. Like I should have done something differently. Sometimes I fantasize about leaving it all behind. Moving to a cabin in the woods, growing my own food, living off the grid. But that, too, costs money. So I keep going. One foot in front of the other. I tell myself this isn't forever, even if it sometimes feels like it is. I try to hold on to the version of myself that still believes in more. In love, in creativity, in a life where I'm not just surviving but living. Maybe one day I'll get there. But right now, I'm just trying to make it to next Friday. I used to think that if I just worked hard enough, things would eventually fall into place. That was the story I grew up hearing: study hard, get a degree, land a decent job, and life would sort itself out. But here I am, 27, with a diploma gathering dust in a drawer, a job that barely covers rent, and a growing list of things I keep telling myself I'll do someday. I live in a small studio apartment on the edge of the city, the kind of place where you can touch the fridge from the bed. The walls are thin enough to hear my neighbor's TV every night, and the heat pipes rattle like they're trying to escape the building. It's not glamorous, but it's mine, barely. Rent went up again last month. Only $25, but that's another week of eating canned soup instead of ordering a cheap takeout meal after a long shift. I work full-time at a customer service center for a healthcare company. I answer calls from people more frustrated than I am, angry about bills they can't understand or coverage they never knew they lost. Some days I feel like I'm just transferring pain from one person to another. The pay is survivable. Not enough to save. Not enough to feel secure. Just enough to keep the lights on and hold on to some dignity. Every morning I calculate, again and again, how I can stretch my paycheck. Which bills can wait a few days? Can I afford to do laundry this week, or should I hand wash what I need in the tub? Should I buy a monthly transit pass or risk that I might need that money for groceries halfway through the month? It's exhausting. I didn't used to think about money this much. In college, I lived off ramen and Red Bulls, but I believed that was temporary. Now I ration my grocery trips like someone in a war zone. I used to dream about backpacking across Europe, writing a novel, opening a small cafe somewhere quiet. Now, I dream about a day when I don't flinch every time I swipe my debit card. There's a constant, low-grade anxiety buzzing in the back of my mind. Like the hum of a refrigerator, you don't always notice it, but it's always there. That anxiety seeps into everything. I don't go out with friends as much anymore. When I do, I nurse one drink all night and pretend I'm just not that thirsty. I feel embarrassed, even around people I love, like I'm behind on some invisible scoreboard. Dating? Forget it. How do you explain to someone that your idea of a splurge is a $5 streaming rental instead of waiting for it to hit Netflix? I've canceled more dates than I've gone on because I couldn't afford the Uber ride there and back. It's not just the money, it's the shame. What's hardest is the feeling that no matter how hard I work, I'm not getting anywhere. Like running on a treadmill that someone keeps cranking up. Expenses grow, but wages don't. Rent climbs. Insurance premiums go up. Groceries somehow cost more every single month. Meanwhile, my salary has stayed the same for 3 years. When I asked about a raise, my manager said they'd keep me in mind. That was 8 months ago. Sometimes I wonder what I'm even working toward. I used to think about grad school. I wanted to study psychology, help people work through their pain. But the thought of more student loans gives me hives. I still owe $42,000 from undergrad. I paid the minimum every month for 5 years and the number barely moves. It's like bailing water out of a sinking ship with a plastic cup. I've started side hustles, freelance writing gigs, pet sitting, even selling old clothes online. It helps, but it's not sustainable. I'm tired. Really tired. There are days I come home and collapse on the couch still in my work clothes, no energy left even to heat up a frozen dinner. Despite everything, I still have moments, little flashes of hope. A kind word from a customer who knows I'm just doing my job. A surprise $20 refund. A sunny afternoon where I forget, just for a moment, how tight everything is. I hold on to those moments like lifelines. I've learned to cope in small ways. I journal. I budget obsessively. I watch free online therapy videos. I volunteer once a month at a food pantry, not just because I want to help, but because it reminds me that I'm not alone. Everyone there has their own story of struggle. There's solidarity in that. My dreams aren't gone, just quieter. Tucked away, waiting. I still think about the novel. I still imagine that trip to Europe, even if now it's more of a retirement fantasy than a plan for next summer. I've stopped asking when, and started thinking in terms of maybe someday. What hurts most is knowing that this isn't just about me. I see friends going through the same thing. We were told we could be anything, but no one mentioned how much it would cost just to be okay. It feels like the system was designed for us to fail slowly, invisibly, too stressed to protest, too busy to imagine anything different. But I haven't given up. Not yet. I still show up. I still try. And maybe that's something. Maybe that's everything. I used to think that hard work was the key. That if you kept your head down, took on overtime, skipped luxuries, and played by the rules, things would eventually get easier. I don't believe that anymore. Not because I've stopped working hard, but because I've been doing all that for years and I'm still barely keeping my head above water. My name's Jordan. I'm 27, and I live in a one-bedroom apartment with my partner just outside a city that eats paychecks faster than it spits out rent hikes. I work full-time as a pharmacy technician, which used to be enough to live modestly. But now, between rent, groceries, utilities, and my student loans, there's barely room to breathe. Every day feels like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up just a little more, and I'm getting tired. Rent alone eats up more than half my paycheck. We used to go out for dinner once a week, a cheap place, nothing fancy, but now it's once a month, if that. Groceries are a game of substitutions. Can't afford the good bread? Get the store brand. Meat? Less of it, and stretch it. We don't waste a single item in our fridge. I've become the kind of person who waters down shampoo to make it last longer, who calculates the cost per wear of socks before buying them. Sometimes I joke that I could have majored in budgeting instead of biology, since that's the real skill I use every day. I graduated 6 years ago, thinking I'd work in a lab or maybe go back for a master's. But loans started coming due, and I had to get a job immediately. I promised myself I'd go back to school later. Later keeps moving further away. There are days when I wake up with a pit in my stomach, not because something bad happened, but because I know the numbers won't work again this month. Last week, the car needed new tires. The week before, my partner got sick and missed work. These things keep happening. Life keeps happening. And there's no cushion. The worst part is how much mental space money takes up. I don't think people who've never lived like this understand. Every decision, every single one, has a dollar sign attached to it. Should I take this route to work? It's shorter but has a toll. Should I visit my mom 2 towns over? That's gas I can't really spare. Should I get my teeth cleaned or hope nothing goes wrong for another 6 months? I used to write poetry. Not for money, just because it made me feel human. I had this little dream of publishing a collection one day. It's been over a year since I've written anything. I get home from work and I'm exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. All my creative energy goes into spreadsheets and bills now. I don't resent people who've made it work. I just wish it didn't feel like the system was designed to punish us for trying. The cost of everything keeps climbing, and wages don't. It's not just me, I see it in my coworkers, in the guy who delivers our groceries, in the parents in the waiting room when their kids are sick and they're calculating whether they can afford the meds. I cope by talking. Not just to my partner, who's amazing and somehow still believes in both of us, but to friends, coworkers, sometimes even strangers. There's a strange solidarity in knowing you're not alone in this trench. We swap tips, where to find the cheapest produce, which side hustles don't suck your soul dry, how to apply for utility assistance without your pride taking a hit. Some nights, I lie in bed thinking about the version of myself I used to imagine at 27. I saw someone confident, living in a place with a yard, maybe a dog, a stable career, saving for travel or a house. That person isn't me, not yet. Maybe not ever. But I haven't stopped hoping. I still picture a home where we don't argue about bills, where I can buy birthday gifts without guilt, where my mind feels uncluttered enough to write again. I don't want to be rich. I just want breathing room. I want to wake up and not feel dread. I want to believe that this hustle is leading somewhere, that I'm not just spinning wheels in place. Sometimes I think that's the most brutal part, this sense that no matter how hard you push, the ground beneath you keeps shifting. I know things need to change. The economy, the job market, the way we talk about success and failure in this country, it all needs to shift. But right now, in my day-to-day, I just focus on surviving. On making it through the month. On keeping that tiny ember of hope alive, even if it flickers low. Because even if I feel trapped now, I haven't forgotten how to dream. I'm just waiting for the space to chase those dreams again. I never thought I'd feel old at 27. Not in the physical sense, but old in the way that dreams start to feel like relics, like vinyl records in a streaming world. I still remember the wide-eyed optimism I carried when I graduated with my degree in communications. The plan was simple: get a job, move out of my parents' house, and start building a life that made the student loan debt seem worth it. That was 5 years ago. And the plan? It unraveled, slowly and then all at once. These days, I work 2 jobs. A full-time customer service role for a healthcare tech company during the day and part-time shifts at a local coffee shop on weekends. I sleep with one eye on my bank app. Rent alone eats up over half my monthly income, and I share a 2-bedroom apartment with a guy I barely know. We cohabitate more like survivors in a lifeboat than roommates. He keeps to his room, I keep to mine. We pass each other like ghosts. Groceries have become a strategy game. I can stretch a bag of rice, a carton of eggs, and frozen veggies for a week if I'm careful. When I do splurge, a $1 for coffee, or a takeout burrito after a rough shift, I feel a mixture of guilt and fleeting relief. It's like borrowing comfort from tomorrow. Every decision has a price tag. I stopped going to therapy because the $80 copay felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. My car needs new brakes, but I'm driving slow and praying they hold out another month. I wear the same 4 shirts on rotation because new clothes are a joke I don't laugh at anymore. The economic pressure isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet, it's a weight in my chest. It hums in the background of every conversation, every date I say no to, every invitation I ignore. It's the reason I didn't fly home for my mom's birthday. I told her I was swamped with work, but the truth was, I couldn't afford the flight. She said she understood. She always says that. But I heard the hurt in her voice, the pause before she replied. And I'm tired. Tired in a way that coffee can't fix. It's the kind of tired that seeps into your bones and whispers that nothing is going to change. I scroll through social media and see people traveling, buying homes, celebrating promotions, and I wonder what I did wrong. Did I miss some secret manual that taught everyone else how to be an adult? The worst part is, I used to dream. I had plans to start a small media company, create digital content that helped nonprofits tell their stories. I wanted to build something meaningful. I even had a name picked out. But dreams require time, money, and headspace, all of which feel like extinct currencies in my world. Now, I settle for survival. I budget hope in the same way I budget money, conservatively and with skepticism. I tell myself that maybe next year things will loosen up, that I'll save enough to quit the weekend job, that I'll finally fix the brakes and take that weekend trip to the mountains. I used to hike all the time. Nature made me feel infinite. These days, I feel more like a statistic. Coping? I do what I can. I write in a journal most nights, mostly to get the noise out of my head. I listen to podcasts about people who made it, entrepreneurs, artists, people who clawed their way out of situations like mine. Some stories inspire me. Others just remind me of how far I still have to go. I also talk to my best friend, Jordan. We vent to each other like it's a sacred ritual. He's in the same boat, overworked, underpaid, and perpetually close to burnout. Misery doesn't love company, but it does crave understanding. We dream together sometimes, late at night, about moving somewhere cheaper, starting something new, reclaiming parts of ourselves we've had to put on layaway. I'm not bitter. Not exactly. More, disillusioned. It's hard not to be when every month feels like a new test you didn't study for. When the cost of living climbs faster than your paycheck, when healthcare feels like a roulette wheel, and when it seems like every piece of progress comes with a catch. But I still hope. Not loudly, but quietly, like a stubborn flame that refuses to go out. I hope for a time when I can breathe without calculating the cost. When I can say yes without doing mental math. When I can dream in full color again. Until then, I keep going. I clock in. I budget. I write. I survive. And sometimes, I still allow myself to imagine a future that feels less like a compromise and more like a life. Because despite everything, I believe I deserve that. We all do. I didn't think being an adult would feel like this, like standing on a treadmill that slowly speeds up, and no matter how fast I run, I can't keep up. I'm 27, live in a 1-bedroom apartment I can barely afford, and work 2 jobs that still don't cover all my bills. Every month I feel like I'm juggling knives, just hoping none of them fall and slice into whatever semblance of stability I have left. I wasn't always this anxious. When I graduated college, communications degree in hand, student loan debt already a shadow over my shoulder, I had hope. I thought I'd work my way up in a company, start saving in a couple of years, maybe even travel a bit like my parents did in their 20s. But that was before the job market turned into a game of musical chairs where half the chairs are broken and the music keeps glitching. Now, my life revolves around numbers. Rent, utilities, groceries, gas, minimum payments. I know them better than I know my friends' birthdays. Rent went up again last month. The landlord shrugged when I asked why, said something about inflation and property taxes. I wanted to scream that my paycheck didn't inflate. Instead, I nodded and went back to scrolling for part-time gigs on my lunch break. My mornings start at 6:30 a.m. I bike to my first job, customer support for a tech company. It's remote, but I don't have reliable Wi-Fi at home, so I do my shifts at a co-working space that eats into my already thin budget. I smile on the calls, but inside, I'm always calculating how many hours until I can clock out and head to my shift at the cafe. The cafe job's brutal, late hours, aching feet, endless orders, but it gives me cash tips, which feel like little lifelines. I keep a jar in my closet, filled with crumpled bills and loose change. That jar has covered everything from unexpected vet bills to late-night grocery runs when I was too ashamed to admit I didn't have enough left on my card. There's this constant buzz in my chest, a background hum of stress that never really goes away. I can't remember the last time I felt fully relaxed. Even on days off, I'm cleaning, budgeting, doing laundry, applying for better jobs that require 5 years of experience for entry-level roles. I see my friends less now. Most of them are going through the same thing, text threads full of "let's hang soon," that we all know are just echoes of a time when we had energy to socialize. I used to dream of being a writer. I imagined working on my novel in sunlit cafes, pitching articles to magazines, maybe even freelancing full-time. I still write sometimes, in fits and starts, usually when insomnia pulls me out of bed at 2 a.m. But mostly, I'm too tired. It's hard to create when your brain is stuck in survival mode. Even reading feels like a luxury now. My bookshelf collects dust while I collect receipts. Dating? I've tried. But how do you explain to someone that your idea of a good time is splitting a frozen pizza and watching free YouTube videos because anything else might tip your bank account into the red? I've canceled more first dates than I've gone on, not because I didn't want to go, but because I couldn't justify the Uber or the drink minimum. It makes you feel unworthy, like love is something for people with disposable income. I know I'm not alone. That's the strangest comfort, I guess. So many of us are living paycheck to paycheck, comparing prices at the grocery store like it's a sport. I've become an expert at stretching meals, finding 2-for-1 deals, fixing broken things with duct tape. But it wears you down, this constant vigilance. It's like living under a slow, invisible erosion. I'm still here, but parts of me have worn away: hope, spontaneity, ease. Sometimes I wonder, is this it? Is this all adulthood will be: running numbers, dodging debt, trying to build a life on quicksand? I try not to let the bitterness grow, but it creeps in, especially when I hear older generations talk about how they bought homes in their 20s on a single income, or paid off college by working summers. I want to scream that the rules have changed, but no one updated the game. Still, I cope. I've learned to find joy in scraps. An hour of sunshine on my fire escape. A friend sending me a meme that makes me laugh out loud. A rare evening where I get to write more than a paragraph. I hold on to those moments like driftwood, hoping they'll carry me to a calmer shore. I postponed dreams, sure. But I haven't given them up. Not entirely. There's still a version of my life where I get to breathe more easily. Where I don't flinch at every unexpected expense. Where I can work one job and still afford therapy, or buy a birthday gift without doing mental math. I don't know how to get there yet. The path is blurry, the roadblocks many. But I think the first step is admitting that this isn't okay. That being crushed under the weight of a broken system isn't a personal failure. That surviving, however messily, is a form of resistance. So I keep going. Not with the fire I once had, but with a quiet, stubborn ember. Some days that has to be enough. Some days, I sit on the edge of my bed in the dark and just listen. The hum of the refrigerator. The soft traffic sounds echoing from the street below. And under it all, this constant, gnawing anxiety I can't quite silence. It's always there. It whispers through my decisions, chokes my sleep, colors even the happiest moments with a hint of gray. I'm 28. I graduated 6 years ago with a degree in communications, starry-eyed and ambitious. Back then, I thought I'd be writing for a magazine or working in content strategy at a cool startup. Instead, I'm juggling 2 part-time jobs, one at a coffee shop and another doing remote admin work for a small firm that pays just above minimum wage. I also freelance when I can find the energy, designing Canva graphics and managing social media accounts for local businesses. It's enough to keep me housed and fed. Barely. Rent eats over half my income. And this isn't a swanky apartment, just a one-bedroom in a crumbling building with mold in the bathroom and a landlord who only shows up when it's time to raise the rent. The city's booming for some people, apparently. Shiny condos are sprouting up all around me, and every time I pass one, I wonder what it's like to live in a place where the floors don't creak like ghost stories. I wonder who's affording it. It sure as hell isn't me. Every dollar is a decision. Do I buy fresh vegetables this week, or stick with canned beans and rice again? Do I skip the bus and walk an extra mile to work to save $2.75? Do I go to the dentist for the tooth that started aching last month, or wait until the pain becomes unbearable, and possibly more expensive? It's like my life is a never-ending equation where the answer is always almost enough, but not quite. I used to dream bigger. Travel. Maybe start a small design studio. I wanted to get a dog, a golden retriever named Miso. I wanted to get a master's degree. I even started a savings account once, put away $50. Then my laptop charger broke, and that was that. I don't dream like that anymore. It hurts too much to imagine things that feel so far out of reach. Like pressing your nose to the glass of a bakery when you're starving. Emotionally, it's exhausting. My friends, the ones who've made it, don't get it. They talk about investing and stock options, about Burning Man and Pilates classes. I nod and smile. We drift. Not out of anger or jealousy, just distance. When you're in survival mode, you're not always fun to be around. You cancel plans. You're too tired. You don't have the right clothes for that birthday dinner. You say no a lot. And I don't tell my parents the full truth. They already did so much for me growing up, 2 jobs each, just so I could go to college. I can't bring myself to admit that even after all that, I still can't make it work. I don't want to see that look in their eyes. That silent question, did we do all this for nothing? Some mornings, I feel a tightness in my chest before I even open my eyes. It's not panic, exactly, more like dread's quieter cousin. Just the awareness that I have to do this all over again. Smile at customers while calculating whether I can afford toilet paper this week. Answer emails pretending to be someone's chipper virtual assistant while my stomach growls because I skipped breakfast. But I cope, somehow. I keep a journal. I light cheap candles from the dollar store and pretend my apartment smells like bergamot and cedarwood instead of mildew. I watch old sitcoms for comfort. I take pictures of the sky when it's a good blue. I text my best friend memes we can laugh at even when we're both dead tired. I read poetry before bed. Sometimes, I cry in the shower, and then I feel a little better. There's shame, too. That heavy, sticky kind that makes you feel like you're doing something wrong just by existing. Like you should have chosen a better major, worked harder, networked more. But the truth is, I know so many people like me. People who followed the rules, went to school, got the degree, took the internships, and still wound up here. It's not just personal failure. It's the math not adding up anymore. Wages stagnant. Rent rising. Healthcare a gamble. It's like trying to climb a down escalator that just keeps speeding up. Still, some part of me, the part that stubbornly refuses to give up, keeps hoping. I don't know what for, exactly. Maybe just for things to stop getting worse. Maybe for a lucky break. Maybe for a moment when I can take a deep breath without calculating its cost. I keep a sketchbook under my bed. I still draw sometimes, late at night. Characters from stories I haven't written yet. Miso the golden retriever, curled up by my side in an apartment with real sunlight. It's stupid, probably. But hope isn't always rational. Sometimes it's the only thing that gets you up in the morning. So, I get up. I make instant coffee. I stretch. I scroll for jobs I might not get. I pick up the pen and draw another page. I try again. Because what else can you do when quitting isn't an option? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.